Hello everyone, this is part 2 of my review of the movie Tar, starring Cate Blanchett, written, directed, and produced by Todd Field. This movie came out September of last year and is about Lydia Tarr, an extremely successful orchestral conductor who loses everything when it's discovered she's been having affairs with her young female students. The movie has been nominated for and won multiple critical awards, and it's been praised for its handling of politically charged topics like identity, abuse of power, and cancel culture. But what interests me the most about this movie, it's not its plot nor its politics, but its wonderfully nuanced and realistic depiction of the classical music artist as an individual and the culture of the classical music world. I am a professional classical music artist. I've been playing in symphony orchestras for close to 30 years. I know the world being depicted in this movie. So I wanted to talk about this movie from that perspective, focusing less on plot and more on the world building this movie does so well. Now, in the previous video, part 1 of this movie review, I give a brief description of the plot. I talk about why I decided to review this movie in the first place, and I discuss in general terms what I liked and particularly what I didn't like about this movie. If you want to see that video, the link is in the description below. Now, in this video, I want to discuss in detail a pivotal scene that happens early on in the movie. Remember, the job of the conductor is to lead the musical performance. This means the conductor must interpret the musical composition. They must determine the intent of the composer, what the composer wanted the listener to feel when listening, and they must determine what the music is actually doing or is capable of doing, how it actually makes the listener feel. Then, the conductor must communicate that to the musicians playing so that they, in turn, can convey that through their performance to the audience, in the hopes that the audience feels what the performers do. In the movie, Lydia is invited to teach a conducting class at the Juilliard School of Music. When the scene begins, we see a chamber ensemble, a group of 8 players, playing a new composition and being led by a student named Max. Now, Max doesn't get 10 seconds in before Lydia is stopping him to critique. She doesn't like the music Max has chosen to conduct very much. She doesn't believe the composer nor the music has a clear enough intent. The music doesn't know or is not capable of eliciting what it wants the listener to feel. And in the course of explaining this to the class, she says this, quote, "There are times when you, the conductor, will simply have no choice, and you will be made to stand in front of an orchestra and pretend that there are these invisible structures. But my prayer for you is that you will be spared the embarrassment of standing on a podium with a 433 trying to sell a car without an engine." Lydia here is making a philosophical point about the purpose of art, the purpose of music, to make us feel something intentionally, not randomly. You see, if a musical composition does not have a clear enough intent, or the composer wasn't skilled enough to write something that could convey that intent, then what the performer and listener is left with is just so much noise. Pretty noise, perhaps, but just noise nonetheless. No direction, no drama, no emotional journey. By the way, that 433 reference, that's the name of a musical composition written by John Cage in 1952. For 4 minutes and 33 seconds, a musician sits on stage with their instrument in complete silence and does absolutely nothing. Not a single note is played. The purpose, according to Cage, was to accentuate ambient sound, what he called the absence of intended sounds. It was a musical science experiment. That kind of thing has become trendy in the modern classical music world. So, anyway, later on in the scene, when Lydia holds up Bach as an example of a composer with both clear intent and the ability to write music that communicates that intent, and Max expresses disdain for Bach for non-musical reasons, Bach being a white male, for example, Lydia challenges Max's point of view not for political reasons, but for artistic and personal ones. Later on, she says, quote, "You want to dance the mask? You must service the composer. You gotta sublimate yourself, your ego, and yes, your identity. You must, in fact, stand in front of the public and God and obliterate yourself." To be honest, I had to look these two words up to make sure I understood what they meant. Sublimate, to divert the expression of an instinctual desire or impulse, like ego, from its unacceptable form to one that is considered more socially or culturally acceptable. And obliterate, cause to become invisible or blot out. Lydia is saying here that the person you are must be secondary to the art. Obviously, in the movie, this idea has particular ramifications to the plot. That is, in fact, what Lydia has done. She has sublimated herself, or at least tried to. But this idea that you must be secondary to the art is a real-life mindset pervasive in the classical music world. It is baked into the culture. We venerate the great masters, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, others. We put them on pedestals, call them geniuses, and consider ourselves lesser by comparison. No matter how much we study or how many years of experience we gather, we are only fit to convey the genius of these masters. Our own genius, our own individuality is irrelevant and couldn't possibly compare anyway, right? This notion has a profoundly negative effect on the psyche of the artist. On the one hand, being a part of the creation of such profound beauty with music making, and yet, deep down, always feeling somewhat unworthy of it. Never quite able to measure up. The notion also has a profound effect on classical music culture. It makes it doggedly tradition-bound, always looking backwards, very rarely forwards. It's a pickle, though, isn't it? The reason we look back to these great masters, the reason they are so venerated is because time after time, performance after performance, interpretation after interpretation, the music of Bach is never found wanting. The music of Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms and so many others consistently delivers, time after time after time. Their intent is clear. They always make the listener feel something, and that kind of track record deserves praise. If you're interested in watching my next video about the movie Tar, or if you want to watch any of my other videos about music, viola playing, or art in general, please subscribe and hit the like button. And also hit the notification bell so that you are alerted when I post another video. Thanks for watching.